Okay, so let's. Okay, so we will use around 10 minutes to have a revision about the momentum first, and then we will go to the new section. Okay, so for the momentum, so I guess we can start from F equals to ma, so A equals to V minus Q over T. Okay, so here is the change in momentum, and the mass times velocity is called the momentum. Okay, so momentum is just a name, and we can use momentum to explain field situation. Okay, so the main purpose for us to introduce momentum is to explain the situation. Okay, so no other special functions. 係咪大家都聽到啊？有冇人聽唔到？
用 next one 佢聽唔到得。
聽到啦，
聽到。
聽到啦，係嘛 ？Okay, so I will use 3 examples to talk about the functions of momentum. So the first one is crushing. Okay, so when you are driving the car and crush into something, for example, a wall. Okay, so it's favored if you are pressing the seat belt. Why? So we can use this equation. So F equals to mv minus m2 over t. So for crushing, the final velocity is 0. Okay, 你撞車咧，咁最後個 velocity 係0，係咪？ So the initial velocity is dependent on how fast you drive. Okay, so you can imagine the mv and mu are also the constant. So in this case, delta p is a constant. 因為你揸車揸幾快同最後個 velocity 咧都係 constant 嘅。So delta p is a constant. So in order to make yourself favored, then you would like to have a lower force, right? So if the force is lower, then she will be favored, since you can't change the initial velocity or the final velocity. Okay, so the only thing you can change is the times t. So if you can increase the times, then you can lower the forces. So there are many ways for you to increase the time. So for example, to fasten the seat belt. So if you fasten the seat belt, then you will have a longer contact time. So to have a lower force, so you will be favored. The second one is to use the air cushion. Okay, so when there is this absence, then the air cushions will be pop out. Okay, so you will collide with the air cushions instead of collide with the glass. So in this case, the contact time will be increased and the force will be decreased. And the last one is that for a normal car, the front part is longer. Okay, so when the front part deforms, then sure the contact time will be longer. Okay, so there are 3 ways for you to increase the contact time, so to lower the force. So for this case, the change in momentum is constant. Okay, so this is the main idea. Okay, so that's why when you increase the time, then you will have a lower force. So the second one is the short put. Do you know what is short put? Number 15. Yeah, short put. Yeah, short put. You know, number 15 啊，喂，快啲講嘢啊 ！Hi, number 15 are you here？ 唔好掛機啊
Hello.
Hello, what is short put 啊？知唔知啊？呢個就係推圓球。OK， 好啦，咁你諗下推圓球咧同上面嗰個 case 咧有啲咩關係或者有啲咩唔同咧 ？OK， so we can use the same equation. So F equals to mv minus m2 over t to increase the result of short put. 咁你推圓球咧，咁梗係上個越遠越好啦，係咪？咁點樣先會越遠越好啊？咁第一個你可以 increase 個 force 啦，係咪？好啦，喺呢條式度咧，點樣會遠啲啊？ So the initial velocity must be 0， 即係你未推佢之前咧，呢個圓球嘅 initial velocity 係咪 0 嘅 ？OK，so when you enlist the chute, okay, the final velocity will determine how far it goes. Okay, so the v determines by how far the ball goes. So since the initial velocity is 0, so ft equals to mv, right? So there are a few ways for you to increase the v. of the ball when it release the hand。呢個 V 咧係指你推個波出去嘅時候咧個 velocity 有隻手有啲長啦。呢個好啦，咁咧有兩個情況嘅。咁個 M 咧推完球嘅 M 係肯定係 constant 嚟啦，所以你冇辦法啦。So you can either increase the force and keep。咁咧 increase the force 咧係廢話嚟嘅，係咪？你體育老師都唔會同你講，你推完球點樣遠啲啊 ？OK， so you can put it hard as possible， 個個都知你要好大力咁 push 出去啦，係咪？咁所以咧，其實呢個 force 咧 is a constant for people， 即係你可以 apply 嘅最大嘅力咧，其實係一個 constant 嚟嘅。好啦，咁所以咧，你推完球點樣可以推遠啲啊 ？So you can increase the contact time。所以你諗一諗，有冇學過推完球啊？1號有冇學過推完球？你 P 有冇學過推完球啊 ？Hi，
有
冇學過？
有
係啦，你推完球嘅時候咧，個圓球一開始要擺喺邊度啊？個圓球咧，老師係咪教你嘅？係啦，夾喺個膊頭度啊嘛，跟住轉一個圈先掉出去，點解咧？就係為咗 increase 呢個 time 咯。其實咧，你都可以就咁掉出去嘅，你就可以就咁擺喺隻手度掉出去咯。咁但係呢個時候咧，你呢個 contact time with the ball will be lower. So why we need to put the ball next to our neck and then to rotate ourselves? Because we want to increase the time. 因為你冇可能係好短時間之後咧 increase the force 嘅，你本身咁大力就係咁大力㗎嘛，係咪？咁所以咧 ，you can only increase your time, so that you will put the ball next to your neck and then to rotate yourself to increase the time. So when the time increase, okay, so all the other things are constant, then the velocity will be increased. So for a higher velocity, then sure we have a higher range. So the range will be increased. So sure we have a better result. Okay, so you can compare the first two cases. They have the similar concept. Okay, just different variables. For the first case, you want to lower the force, so you need to have a longer time. But in this case, the force is not a constant. The change is the delta P is a constant. For the second one, you want to increase the velocity. In this case, the force is constant. Okay, so because you will use your larger force to push the ball, since the force is a constant, so you need to increase the time. Okay, so in order to have a faster V. 咁所以咧，其實呢個 change in momentum 咧 can use to explain different situations. OK， 咁咧仲有兩種 situation 就係咧 when you slap your classmate。點解寫唔到字？ So when you slap your classmate, how to make your classmate to feel hurted? Okay, so when you slap your classmate, so F equals to mv minus m2 over t. So if you want your classmate to be hurted, okay, so you can lower your contact time, right? 咁咧，但係如果呢個 contact time 都係 constant 咧，咁你有乜辦法可以令到你嘅 classmate 痛啲咧 ？Okay, so you can slap your classmate and then your hands bounce back. So in this case, Ft equals to mv minus m2. So if your hand bounce back, then the delta P will be increased. Okay, so the force will be increased. So your classmates will be hurted. And then the last situation is that why you feel hurt when something flows to you. So for example, if the ball flows to you, you feel hurt. Why? Because the initial velocity of the ball is pointing to this direction, right? So when the ball collides with you, then the ball will be bounced back. Okay? So F equals to mv minus m2 over t. 咁咧呢個波 bounce back 啊嘛，係咪？咁所以會有個 force 嘅。So there is a force provided to the ball and let the ball to bounce back. Okay? So the force provided to the ball is from yourself. 呢個波受到個 force 喺度嚟啦。Okay, so you provide the ball, you provide the force to let the ball to bounce back. So you apply the force to the ball. In the other words, according to the Newton's first law, since you apply the force to the ball, so the ball apply the force to you. So you feel hurt. This situation also explains why there is air resistance. 咁你可以想象下嘅，當呢度咧 so there are a lot of air around you, right? So when you run forward, then you change the directions of the air. You change the directions of the air. That means you provide force to the air. So in the other words, the air will exert force to you. The air will exert force to you, and there is the process of air resistance. So far, is there any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? 有冇問題啊？有冇問題啊？好啊，仲喺邊度啊？有冇問題啊？
冇啊。
冇會答住得㗎。Okay, so if you have the book, if you have the book with you, then you can turn to 248. So if you don't have your book, then you can see the screen. Question number 10. 咁我哋話做一題 question 有關 ring 啊嘛，咁我哋就做呢題啦。Okay. So give you 3 minutes. Give you 3 minutes. And I will ask you to turn on your screen. 冇嘢聽得明，唔緊要，我已經 record 咗啦，大家咧可以上網睇翻，或者可以再同你 one to one 咁樣咧，咁樣開過一個 Zoom。Okay, so do question number 10 first. 有冇預習過啊？快啲做到第10題咯。Do question number 10. 冇瞓覺啊？有冇做緊啊？Give you 3 minutes 啊。Okay, so let's solve these questions together. So A1. So what is the momentum of each raindrop before hitting the umbrella? Okay, so Cami is holding an umbrella of 0.2 kg in the rain. So every second, an average of 100 raindrops, each of mass 0.2 kg, hits the umbrella of a speed of 8 meters per second. Okay, so here is the situation. So the rain will drop on the umbrellas. And for A1, we need to find the momentum of each raindrop, since the momentum equals to mass times velocity, right? So the mass is 0.2 grams, so 0.2 over 1,000. So the velocity is 8, so that's all, it's 1.6 times 10 to negative 3. So what's the unit? What's the unit? Kitty, what's the unit? Kitty, what's the unit? Kitty?
我要答咩㗎？
The unit of momentum.
kg per m per s.
係 kg per meter per second.
Sorry.
So the unit is kg per meter per second. So here's the answers of A1. So for 2, estimate the average force acting on the umbrellas by the ring. So hence, find the forces required by Cammy to hold the umbrella. 咁咧，由於啲魚咧彈落嚟嘅時候咧，咁係咪會 create 咗 momentum 啊？咁咧嗰個人咧要 provide 幾多 force 咧to acting on the umbrella by the ring 或者叫 against the ring。好啦，咁咧佢呢度咧 assume 咗一樣嘢就係 so when the ring drops to the umbrella, it stops on the umbrella. When the ring drops to the umbrella, it stops. Okay. So what is the final velocity of the ring? What's the final velocity of the ring? Hello? Hello? What's the final velocity of the ring? Hi. 有冇人啊？有冇人啊？有冇人啊？有冇人啊？又揾個人講下嘢啊！你又唔好爆咗。係啊，講出嚟啦！係啊，算啦，你後面見到冇啊？好多人啊。So the final velocity of the ring is 0. Okay. Since the ring is now rest on the umbrella, so the final velocity of the ring is 0 meters per second. So the initial velocity of the ring is given by this fraction. So it's 8 meters per second. Okay, so how much forces for Cammy to hold the umbrella for against the ring? Okay, so F equals to mv minus m2 over t. So the mass is 0.2. V is 0. Okay, so m is against 0.2 over 1000. The initial velocity is 8 times is 1 second. However, for each second, there are 100 drops, right? So we need to times 100 here. So what's the value? What's the value? Number 10, what's the value? Number 10, what's the value? Hi, number 10.
0.16.
Okay, so it's negative 0.16 Newton. Okay. So the force unit to against the ring or to stop the ring is 0.16 Newton. And then, so find the force required for Cammy to hold the umbrella. Okay, so how many forces are required for Cammy to hold the umbrella? So Cammy needs to against the rate, right? So need to against the rate of the umbrella. And then Cammy needs to provide the force to against to change the momentum of the ring. So change the momentum of the ring requires 0.16 Newton. And then mg to hold the umbrella. So the total force is the weight of the umbrella 0.2 times 9.81 plus 0.16 Newton. Okay, so here is the force required to hold the umbrella. So what's the result? What's the result? Number 5, what's the result? Number 5. Number 5. Number 5.
2.12 Newton.
2.13. Oh,
2.12
2.12 Newton.
Newton.
Okay. So that's all about A1 and A2. So any questions about A1 and A2? Any questions about A1 and A2? So I think you may not quite understand the concept clearly, but so I think when you see the questions, it's already easy to solve the questions because the only equations you learned is F equals to mv minus m2 over t. Okay, so just put all the numbers into the equations and you can already find the answer. So for B, if the ring drops bounce off the umbrella, how would your answers in A2 change? 咁會點樣啊？如果呢個 bounce off from the umbrella。揾個同學講下啦，呢個唔需要計都得嘅。Number 20， Number 20， who is number 20？
Hi.
如果 bounce off 會點啊？小妹妹
The force would increase.
？Hi，
Hi.
Wow.
The force would increase
I know the force will increase, but why the force will increase?
because the raindrops bounce off, so there is less time. Less time.
Okay, so so in order to make sure you have better understanding, we can do the calculations again. So we can imagine that the rings bounce off at the same speed the rings go in, okay? But they have opposite directions, right? So if the rings bounce off with the same velocity, with the same speed but in opposite directions, then she will have the equations like this. Okay. 哇，突然好夢。好，寫多次。好啦，如果 so if the rings bounce off with the same speed, then the force required to change the momentum will be double as the original value. So for letter B, the force required is increased. Okay, since there is mv in this case and in opposite directions, I should find that the force required is increased. So any questions about this example? 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 Any questions about this
唔係
example?
減咩？
啊？
唔係減咩？
減，
係加。
減，寫錯咗 ，sorry， 減先會計到呢。好啦，咁你減咗之後咧 ，you will find that the force increase, so that the answer for B is that the force will be increased. So any question? Any question? Any question? If no questions, then we will move to the new section. Okay? I'm going to the new section. Are you okay? 冇人話唔 OK 啫 ，OK 啊？都唔知係咪度？喺咪度啊？喺咪度啊 ？Are you still here?
喺度。
So imagine that if two balls collide with each other, 前方高能啊！你唔明咧？唔出奇。Okay, so if two balls collide with each other, okay, they will contact with each other. Okay, so after they collide, then we will have the velocity v1 and v2. Okay, so when they collide, there is force, right? For M1, there is force acting on M1 by M2. Okay, so force acting on M1 by M2. So for M2, there is the force acting on M2 by M1. Okay, so they are action and reaction pairs. So when the two balls collide, there is action and reaction pairs. There are two forces. For ball one, there is force on the left-hand side by M2. For M2, there is force acted by M1 and onto the right-hand side. 好唔 OK 先？呢度好唔 OK 啊？好唔 OK 啊，小妹妹？小妹妹 O 唔 OK 啊？
咩係 FON？ 咩 BYE？
呢個係 force acting on M1 created by M2。你諗下 M1 同 M2 撞嘅時候咧，呢個 M2 係咪會 provide 一個 force 向左邊啊？ 係咪 provide 向左邊啊？咁呢個
我原來都佢係 force on one，點解佢要黐埋一齊？
呢個係 force，咁點有得唔黐埋一齊啊 ？subscript 嚟噶嘛 ？Force on one by two，呢個係 force on two by one。OK，so they are in opposite directions but same magnitude。先 they are actually here。而家咁樣有冇問題先？有冇問題？有冇問題？有冇問題？有冇問題？
冇啦冇啦。
不如大家開住個生四常啦，好嘛？唔介意同你阿媽食。Okay，so the according to f equals to mv minus m2 over t。好啦，咁咧我哋去波溫嗰度睇下咧，呢條式點樣用啊 ？So force on one by two equals to m1 v minus m2 m1u over t。OK， 咁咧呢個波溫咧撞完之後咧，佢原本向右行，撞完之後咧唔知向邊度行。點解佢唔知向邊度行咧？就係因為咧波2 provide a force to 波1。OK，so we'll make it decelerate or even to go to the opposite direction。咁反正咧條式就係咁啦。So for 波1 the force on 1 by 2 equals to m1v minus m1u over t。呢條式有冇問題？呢條式有冇問題？呢條式有冇問題啊？有冇問題？
冇。
Okay, so now for ball 2, the force on 2 by 1 is m2v minus m2u over t。好啦，咁樣寫出嚟咧，好似冇乜用咁，係咪？呢兩條式有冇問題先？有冇問題啊？呢兩條式有冇問題啊？有冇人啊？學啊？你知唔知？
冇問題，
冇。
冇問題啊！
咁代幾咁，好似暗戀緊一個人咁樣，唔知有冇結果？Since these two forces are action and reaction pairs, right? They are action and reaction pairs. So force on 1 by 2 equals to negative force on 2 by 1. Okay, so they are action and reaction pairs. So they will have opposite directions. They will have opposite directions, but same magnitude. And that's why she can write down this equation. Are you okay with that? 寶貝 are you okay with that? Are you okay?
應該係啊 OK。
咁咧我繼續寫啦。So force on 1 by 2 is m1v minus m1u over t equals to m2v minus m2u over t. They have the same t because the contact terms are the same. And then we will rearrange the equation. Okay. 係啊，漏咗 negative sign. So rearrange the equation. Then she will find that m1u1 plus m2u2 呢個唔記得加翻個1同2先啊 ，sorry， 加翻個1同2。So m1u1 plus m2u2 equals to m1v1 plus m2v2. Okay, so you rearrange the equation, and you will get this equation. So m1u1 plus m2u2 equals to m1v1 plus m2u2. This equation is called the laws of conservation of momentum on shear block. So page 唔知幾多，有冇揾到呢條 equation 啊？Page 252 on shear block. So if you have your books with you, then you can turn to page 252, then you will get this equation. So on your book, uses A and B the notation, okay? So for me, I normally use 1 and 2. 都係一樣啫。嗱，波 A 嘅 UA， 波 B 嘅 UB， 好啦，咁咧加埋咧就會一樣。 So if you don't know how to 啱啱我寫咁多嘢 that helps you to derive the equation. So if you don't want to know how to derive the equation, then you can just memorize the equation. Let's just memorize this equation. M1U1 plus M2U2 equals to M1V1 plus M2V2. This equation is called the law of conservation of momentum. Okay, so if you analyze the equation, then you will find that here, the left-hand side is the momentum before collision, right? So this is the momentum before the collision. And so for the right-hand side is the momentum after the collision.
Mr. O，你係咪喺度啊？
喺度。
你可唔可以咧將前一版即係左邊嗰啲全部再講多次？
陣間，你今晚 inbox 咗嚇。不過左邊咧，你點知係冇嘅？其實同你 divide 一次啊。但係因為即係我用10秒時間講多次啊。
好，唔該你，我錄音。
你 write down 咗呢兩，我都錄咗，陣間 upload 俾你啊。So you write down these two equations. And these two equations are action and reaction pairs. 咁所以咧 the force on 1 by 2 equals to negative force on 2 by 1. 即係你寫咗呢條 equations and you rearrange the equations and you will get this result. And this result is called the law of conservation of momentum. Okay? So if you analyze this,
我哋咪背識就得啦。我哋係咪背識就得啦？
So if you analyze these equations, then you will find that the left-hand side equals to the momentum before collision, and the right-hand side equals to the momentum after collision. 咁咧得翻1分鐘啦，大家就重新入過啦嚇。拜拜，重新入過，即刻入啊！
拜拜。